Sean Spicer, great to see you. Look, we've got an ambassador in Washington, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, who's called Donald Trump nuts, a traitor, the most destructive president in history. On the other hand, we've got another former Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, a man you know, who's just met Donald Trump again and says he's the victim of a disturbing pylon. Which of these two former Prime Ministers do you think would be the most effective ambassador for Australia if Donald Trump were elected, knowing Donald Trump as you do?
I'm going to go with Scott Morrison on this one, Andrew. Look, I don't understand how any ambassador thinks that it's a smart idea to be critical of current or former leaders in the country that they're supposed to be a liaison to. It doesn't sound very smart of former Prime Minister, now Ambassador Rudd, to be coming into the United States, knowing that President Trump is up, is going to be the candidate of the Republican Party, making enemies. It's just not good diplomatic protocol. I don't think it would serve any country well to have the person that's supposed to be representing them overtly and openly critical of the potential next president of the United States. We had this issue with the UK with Kim Dark, and they had to replace him. I knew Ambassador Dark well. He's a nice man. But I think once you can't be effective in the country that you're expected to serve, you're really not doing your country any favors.
But Sean, I have to say, Kevin Rudd made all those comments before he became ambassador. He's trying to row back now. But Donald Trump is seems to me, as an outsider, is very much a my team, no team kind of guy. Responds very touchily to criticism. Is he the kind of guy that would forgive and forget, that would say, oh, well, that was in the past? How would he respond to an ambassador he knows has abused him in the past? Because he was reminded of this by Nigel Farage on TV only a couple of months ago.
I think it would depend on how, in this case, Ambassador Rudd approached him. As you know, from here domestically in the United States, Donald Trump bested 16 pretty highly qualified politicians, people like Marco Rubio, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, all who've come into the Trump campaign as supporters, from 2016 and now going forward. So I think it would be up to Rudd to sort of reposition himself. Now, that's up to him. Does he want to do that? Will Trump give him the opportunity? But generally speaking, in my sort of experience, Trump's willing to give somebody who wants to make amends the opportunity. It just, the question is how real is that? How authentic is it? And will he be given the opportunity? So I think that would be the hard thing for him, is how does he get himself in a position, if Donald Trump does win, which I believe he will, into a position where he could come in, sort of eat some crow, as we say here, mea culpa, and get back on Trump's right side.
Yeah. Have you, in observing him when he was first president, how does he get on? Does it make a difference, the personal relationship he has with an ambassador? Because
Absolutely.
He was, I must say, it was remarkable how friendly he was to our then ambassador, Joe Hockey, who playing golf with him and all that.
Yep. I was going to say, Joe Hockey did a phenomenal job representing Australia. He understood the role. I got to know Ambassador Hockey. When I visited Australia a couple times, he was very instrumental in my visits then as a civilian, just with some insights and some observations that would suit me well. Very, very deft politician he is. And so I would argue that somebody like him, and I think he used it to benefit Australia. So the relationship, and I don't think it's just Donald Trump. As I've traveled the world, previously in the Bush administration, I was the assistant U.S. trade representative. I've been to, dozens of countries around the world. The relationships that you build allow you to do things that might not exist, have it not be for that personal relationship you have with the person on the other end. So, as I said, I think that the relationship that Ambassador Joe Hockey had representing Australia showed, as you mentioned, he played golf with him. He had a very personal relationship. I assume if Trump played tennis still, he would go over and play on that beautiful court that the Australian embassy has. But that's the kind of power that a personal relationship can be utilized for to benefit your home country. And the obvious inverse of that is digging yourself out of a hole where you've got a bad relationship and you've got to figure out how do I right that wrong. That's the thing that, again, I'm not going to tell Australia who to send over here to represent itself. But at the end of the day, the whole goal of having somebody over here is to benefit the country. And that would be a decision that would have to be made internally there, who the best face for Australia was to build relationships with this incoming next administration, which I believe will be Donald Trump again.
Well, speaking of that, it's interesting. You know, Sean, I thought, and I'm sure that I remember Joe Biden giving hints, or his team giving hints, that maybe there wouldn't be debates with Donald Trump. And that, to me, look, it was appalling. Of course, you shouldn't be running away from debating your opponent when we're talking about trying to choose the next president of the United States. But I thought, well, it makes sense given how he's lacking sharpness and focus. And I thought, you know, why would he expose himself to that danger? But he has now agreed only 2 debates, which seems to me a bit shy. June 27th, a second on September 10. Donald Trump took all of 30 minutes to say, yep, I'm going to be there. What's going on? What's the background to this offer, do you think?
So there's a couple things. It's really interesting that you're asking about the Trump background. I'll go to that first. I helped negotiate some of his appearances in the 2016 campaign. Trump fears no one, right? And so that's the thing, is that his view is, if I can get on stage mano a mano, I'm going to best that person. And he did it in 2020. I think he'll do it again this cycle. So he doesn't care about the things that people like me do on the campaign staff standpoint, in terms of the venue and the moderator, all things that I think are important. Trump's view is, bring it on. I'll take you anywhere, anytime. That's the challenge he posed to Joe Biden. The Biden campaign, to be honest with you, Andrew, when I woke up this morning, I was shocked that they actually accepted his offer. But you notice, and this is not getting a ton of representation in the mainstream left-wing media here in the U.S., Biden did it with very clear terms. Number one, he said basically no third parties. That means no RFK. He does not want RFK Jr. on that debate, or frankly anybody else. He knows that that hurts him. Number two is, he said he wants no audience. He wants it in a television studio where there's no audience, because right now, frankly, from the economy to immigration to his foreign policy positions, he has nothing favorable, and he knows that an audience wouldn't react well to that. So he said no audience. Number three, he said that it had to be in a left-wing media operation. So it wasn't going to be handled where it could be broadcast by everyone. It was going to be a moderator like the softball one he got on CNN. What did he get? The first one, CNN. Jake Tapper, a former Democratic aide, whose former boss, by the way, is Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law. She served in Congress. Jake was her press secretary, right? So he is a Democratic operative. He is going to be this. Biden couldn't ask for a bigger hometown or home field advantage. He laid the field out and made sure that the criteria was very clear, that if you want me to participate in these debates, here are the criteria that's going to benefit me that you have to accept. And I think that's important, because the media is not really reporting it here in the U.S., but Biden ensured that he laid the ground, that everything that Trump had to accept would benefit Biden, from the outlet to the moderator to the atmosphere, by not allowing an audience, to not allowing third parties. It was very clear. And again, I think because of who Donald Trump is, he said, fine, I'll take you anywhere, anytime. And I'll even go one further. I want more of them. I think that it'll be interesting. My only cautionary note, Andrew, is this. I think Trump's got to be careful, very careful, about not lowering the bar too low. At some point, if the bar merely becomes that Joe Biden has to show up and stand there for 60 minutes, that's going to be a disservice. Trump needs to lean into the fact that Biden's been in elective office for 50 years. He's a skilled debater, because Biden's trying to lay this thing like, oh, gosh, I got to be careful, and Trump can't do this and can't do that. I think Trump needs to set a trap for him, because the guy commits one or two gaffes during that first debate. I think that's where Biden's folks are going to be very, very worried that he shows his frailty mentally and physically early on, and that's going to hurt him. The dirty secret, by the way, is that the Commission on Presidential Debates had proposed these 3 debates very late in the cycle, after a lot of people had voted, and that would have benefited Biden. I'm actually shocked that Biden didn't accept those invitations, knowing that it would have irked Trump and it would have happened much later in the cycle. Democrats tend to vote a lot earlier, and it would have benefited Biden. But hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, well, that said, Sean, I think June the 27th, you know, for a November election strikes me as very, very early, where you would think Biden thinks, well, now I can tick off. Yes, we had a debate, but by the time they come to vote, people will have forgotten about it, hopefully, if I've stuffed up. So I don't know. I think it's remarkably early,
I think that
given
it's
there's
going to
only
be
two of them.
Remember, there's two things that we found in the 2012 cycle, if I can go back further, which is one, people are voting earlier in America. You can start voting in a lot of states in early September. Number two, it's not just when they vote, but we're seeing that people tend to make up their mind as to who they're going to vote for earlier. Biden knows, look at these battleground state polls. There's 7 states where this election is going to be won or lost in that account for 94 electoral votes. Biden is behind in 6 of them right now. And in Michigan, it's a dead even tie. That's the only one where he's got any hint of doing well. In Nevada, he's down double digits. In Wisconsin, he's down a handful. So Biden needs to do something to shake up the race. I mean, they are really gambling. I get it. This is early. This is way early for us in the U.S. I think it makes sense. But I think it was a very, very risky move for Biden to go this early, because if he stumbles and falls, I don't know that he gets a second chance.
Very, very interesting. I think it'll be one of the most watched debates in U.S. history at this rate.
Listen, this
Absolutely.
may be one of the most events in world history. I think that the entire world is going to tune in to watch this because it's on CNN. I assume everywhere from down under to across the pond, people are going to be able to tune in and watch it, whether it's online or through a cable system that you have there. But I'm telling you, I think the entire world's going to watch this because for the first time in over a century, America's going to have one president that's already served, can put up his 4-year record against a currently serving president in his 4 years. And I'm telling you this, Andrew, if Donald Trump sticks to his record domestically, internationally, militarily, he will clean Biden's clock. The record in every single area is unequivocally in Trump's favor. If he sticks to issues, sticks to policy, and sticks to his record, there's no match.
Sean Spicer, Donald Trump sticking to something. I mean, you're dreaming. How often would you have given instructions or suggestions and he stuck to them?
It's only for an hour.
You're dreaming now, Sean.
Only for an hour.
Only for an hour, he says. Oh, the triumph of hope over experience.
You know, Andrew, this is funny. I mentioned I briefed Donald Trump prior to the first event that he did in the 2016 cycle. It was the NBC Commander-in-Chief Forum aboard the USS Intrepid with Matt Lauer. I'm sitting there briefing the guy for about an hour. I'm throwing statistics about veterans and some of the things that were going to come up. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's not listening. He's not focused. Trump goes, okay, I got it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he got out there and killed it. He absorbed every piece of information, every statistic. The guy, I mean, I've never seen anything like how he processed the information. I thought he wasn't paying attention. No way. He was absorbing everything, and then he spit it back out, and he crushed that event. So I'm telling you, when he's on his game, there's nobody better.
Sean Spicer, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet, Andrew.